We are live from Austin, Texas here with the DreamHack All-Stars Summer North American Regional #1 as we have 8 teams battling out for $100,000 and one of those teams will go to DreamHack Summer where they fight to be our champions once again. Welcome to Austin, a very, very beautiful place here with the best barbecue around as we get ready for some awesome Heroes of the Storm action. My name is Kyle Laris. Alongside me on the desk today to start with, we have Zoya, we have Gillyweed, and we have Dreadnought joining along for the ride. I feel like an invader here being in America alongside all you lovely, lovely Americans. But let's talk about how this tournament goes down. Let's talk about the format and let's talk about what we are going to be seeing throughout this next 2 days. Across the world, we are having all of our summer regionals going on throughout the entirety of it. 2 teams so far in Team Dignitas and Team eStar have qualified for the Summer Championship, which will be going down in DreamHack Summer. Today and tomorrow, we will find out which one of our first teams is going to be advancing from North America. And then, of course, later down the line, we do have another team advancing forward, making up 2 teams from North America in total. Very excited to see how these 8 teams are going to fare across the entirety of the next 2 days, as in America, it's all the shake-up. It's all been a bit different now. It's not exactly like one team completely dominating, even though, of course, Naventic are quite strong. Let's take a look at the groups to find out exactly who is going to be playing who here across Group A and B. We have Cloud9, Team Naventic, Panda Global, and TNC going to be representing in Group A, and then over towards Group B, Gale Force, Tempo Storm, Astral Authority, and Cognitive Gaming. So some very, very interesting shake-ups here going to be happening in these groups for sure. And we're going to narrow this down just a little bit more now before we do start with the proceedings, and we're going to head over to Group A where I can get the lovely opinions of our experts as well here along the way. So Cloud9, Naventic, Panda Global, and TNC going to be playing out here. Gilly, really, what stands out for you here to start things off?
So the story of this group is the fact that, hey, Cloud9 and Team Naventic, why are they in the same group? Well, Cloud9's been struggling. They did not qualify until the final qualifier for this event. That is crazy. And there are some other good teams there too, so the story of this event, I think for a lot of people, North America is watching all of the teams develop, but the world is watching to see what happens to Cloud9.
And we've got TNC and Panda Global in there as well, Zoya. 2 of these teams, not exactly the most standout teams, I would say, compared to the other 2, but are there chances there for these guys?
Yeah, Panda Global has a real chance. I honestly feel that. They've been really molding the well together over the last 2 weeks. They went through the qualifiers. They went through a lot of roster changes throughout them. They finally landed on Psalm as their 4th, and they look really good. All
right, well, we can move on to Group B now to have a little bit of a look at that. Obviously, we're going to be going into Group A in more detail later on, but taking a look to start things off, it's Gale Force eSports. We have Tempo Storm, Astral Authority, and Cognitive. Dread, you're a little bit familiar with one of these teams, but overall here in Group B, who are we really looking out for?
Honestly, this is kind of a toss-up group. A lot of names are kind of making a breakout tournament, I feel like, for a lot of them. Like, Tempo has shown a lot of recent success. Gale Force as well. Cognitive has always been at that, like, top 4 teams. They feel like they have an opportunity to pull top 2, mainly because, like we talked about it earlier, the little bit of the struggles that we've seen on the side of Cloud9. So this group is going to be very, very interesting, much like we saw in Leicester for Europe.
I believe Cognitive is the only team here that hasn't gone through a roster change in a long time. They've maintained that roster since they formed it.
Yeah, they have a very long-standing roster. I actually talked to Iacona a little bit about that, and we have a lot of breakout performances for some of the newer teams. Yeah. But Cognitive says that while individually they can have good hero pools, very high skill levels, the fact that they've had time to be able to really figure out the compositions that work for them, try all of the different options together with that amount of time, he thinks that gives them an edge here at this event.
Overall, I mean, looking at the 2 groups personally, I'm very, very excited. Whenever I am over in Europe in my little seats and I'm looking at, inside, I see myself just kind of navigating to the top teams, navigating to the Team Naventic, navigating to the Cloud9s in the past. But these 2 groups, in the state that America is in right now, we could see different combinations of top 4s, right?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
You can't predict anything this tournament. We honestly can't just be... I think Naventic is the only clear favorite to make it into the top 4.
Yeah, they went to Spring. didn't have, it's funny how Spring actually worked out in the end. Everyone kind of found their exact rank and where they should be compared to where they actually qualified from. Some would argue, I would argue, I guess. Coming from Spring to now here, do you think Naventic is indeed that top dog? Do you think they're going to have any trouble with anybody? What do you think here?
Yeah, so looking at Naventic, they were struggling in Spring, and even a little bit after, we were wondering what's going to happen to this team. But in the roster change, as well as the role swap, having Zuna move to Warrior and then bringing in Big Impact has really reinvigorated this team. And for me, I feel they're the team to beat for this event.
Right, and then do we have any dark horses across these groups? Who are you guys really looking out for in that regard?
I also think Panda Global is going to be a pretty big dark horse. They were formerly mostly Team Blaze, and they had mixed success then, but right now they are looking very good behind the scenes in scrims.
Okay, Dread?
I think Gale Force, I don't know if I feel comfortable saying that they are a dark horse, but they're going to be the ones that I feel like might have that breakout tournament here coming out of nowhere, the My Insanity kind of effect right before, where it's like everybody's like, they're decent, but then all of a sudden, bam, second place.
They seemed very confident when I spoke to them, actually.
Yes.
More so than the other teams. I've gone around talking, spoke to whoever, but Gale Force have come in and they're pretty confident.
Yeah.
Is it an unfounded confidence?
Those guys specifically know the importance of a tournament mindset.
Right.
There are a lot of guys, I mean, they're coming off of, remember, 2 of them are coming off of the win of Dorm, the win of a lifetime to pay for your college tuition. So, and beating Cloud9 twice now, gotta be feeling good.
All right, well, I think we're ready now to actually move forwards into our first game here. So we're going to take a little bit of a look at Panda Global. Our first match will be Panda Global versus Team Naventic. And as you mentioned already, they are arguably one of your dark horses coming into this. What makes them stand out as your dark horse? Is there anything in particular?
Versatility in players. Every player on this roster has experience playing other roles. Except for you, she mainly sticks to the support role, but I can see them pulling off any composition, whether it's double warrior, double support, warrior-less compositions. Their player pool can, has the most depth when it comes to playing any composition.
Right.
Yeah, I actually talked to them, talked to Yuj, and he said, we're approaching it from the mindset that we have 4 flex players, but they weren't feeling as confident that they can really just go in and continually swap up their roles. So that was something that they really needed to nail down for this event, is who really was playing what.
Okay. Sam is the newest addition to their team. How has he been able to mesh with the team so far during qualifiers and things like that?
I feel like considering the role situation that they've kind of put themselves into, I would say he's done very well.
Right.
I kind of know him a little bit on a personal level and played casually with him quite a bit, and he does seem like a player who's very diverse and going to be able to deal with the pressure and deal with the adaptation at this level of play. So I think it'll work out very well for them.
And Psalm and B-Kid they were former teammates as well, so we already have that pre-built synergy from before.
That's good, that's good. So when you look at Panda Global, who is your playmaker? Because, I mean, there are a lot of people that do stand out. Who would you navigate to?
For me, it's B-Kid. I actually would argue he's one of the most influential Warrior players in all of North America.
Right.
Even through, he's never had some major team that have been top 2, internationally kind of renowned, but every single time I see him play, I'm always impressed.
He always has been too, even dating back to when you were captain of Tempo Storm and competing heavily. We always be like, that B-Kid kid.
Yeah.
He is disgusting.
Yeah, no, his positioning is very,
That's a
very
hard
good.
sentence, that B-Kid kid. But he
nailed it.
He is
You
good.
Thank you very much, Simon. That was beautiful. So would you say that he kind of even transcends the result that Panda Global have got in the past?
I would argue he does.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Both him and Big Impact.
Yeah.
Big Impact was always a star player on that old Panda Global roster, and now look at him on the Naventic.
Okay. Yeah, indeed. And we're going to head over to Naventic now to have a little bit of a look at how they are doing. Of course, there is Fan, one of the most critically acclaimed and successful players in all of Heroes of the Storm. It's definitely no stranger to success, guys.
Yeah, I think whenever you talk about who's the best range carry in the North America, at least, you always hear Fan and you always hear K1 Pro, and both have really good arguments towards their cases.
And then, of course, we move on down the line here, guys. McIntyre, somebody that is really sticks out to you guys?
I think he does at times. I think he brings quite a bit to the table with his team. He does kind of stick to specific heroes, it seems, consistently, but it's a benefit for him.
I always wonder if that's his team. Like, they kind of tunnel onto one hero. Like, one time it was Greymane, another time it was Zagara, and it's like, Mac, you are our rock. You will play this hero for the entire tournament.
There was actually a situation where he was making the joke after a tournament. He's like, I play Tassadar and I play Fawcett. And he was going over the drafts with me, and he goes, see that Tassadar? That's me. And he goes, is this Tassadar or Fawcett? He's like, that's me. And it was just like that. He sticks to those consistent heroes. So
definitely can't ignore one of the biggest and probably smartest changes I've seen throughout all of Heroes of the Storm eSports is moving Zuna from Flex to Warrior. He fits that perfectly.
Yeah, I agree. The aggression and the shot calling decision making that he has, it literally just accents him in all ways.
Well, here is Big Impact, of course, the newest addition to the team. Does he complement the team well in that aggressive regard?
Absolutely. I was a bit worried because formerly of Panda Global, they never really had the most aggressive style. They're very pick-oriented, but never full-on aggression. But he has molded very well with his team.
It's funny that you mentioned, too, this formerly of Panda Global, which means, like you said, B-Kid and Som, he used to play with them. But before moving to Naventic, he played with Team Blaze for briefly, too. So that means he is a former teammate of all of the members on Panda Global right now. So it's a little bit of a grudge match. Like, hey, if we can beat these guys, maybe we can show them, maybe you made the wrong choice.
Wow. It's interesting to see that play out. Of course, Team Naventic comes in, for a lot of people, the big favorite into this match for sure. And as you say, there is always that kind of like little intrinsic, we've played with you before, we know how you're going to be able to do things, but we've always mentioned that Team Naventic is a very, very aggressive team. I kind of want to, you guys have always have this thing of Zuna feed or whatever, but whenever I watch him, it's that line of between genius and kind of disaster in the end. And most of the time, I would argue 85% of the time, it's on the genius side, and that's how they're able to dominate this region.
I think when it comes to Zuna, especially being somebody who like played with them, heard the comms and everything else, it is a bad stereotype to be given to him. He does have those moments where you look and it's kind of, you get a little bit like, was that the right choice? But actually, 90% of the time, that decision making is the thing that separates his team and the success. Like, he is one of the more successful players in all of Heroes of the Storm, and that's not by accident. That playmaking, it's too easy to attribute a negative thing to him because he has way more subtle positive things that a lot of players kind of miss out on.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, and that's something that I picked up a lot whilst watching your region from afar across the pond. I love watching this race. All right, we can take a look at the vetoes here going on forwards, as well as the map pool across the board. Is it going to be Infernal Shrines? Oh, we don't know yet. Okay, so it's Battlefield of Eternity and Garden of Terror being banned out here. Any kind of comments on what we're seeing from those bans to start things off?
I think it's pretty expected to see Garden bans across the board.
Right, yeah.
As I don't think many teams like
no teams really kind of like that. Black Ops Bay kind of struggles from the same problem there, so not surprising to see that. But we do have the map picks here. Sky Temple, Infernal, no surprise there, and then Cursed Hollow.
Yeah. If we look at the stats from Gold League, those three maps are statistically the highest played maps in that region for a reason. They're just they adapt to the current meta very well. There are maps like Garden of Terror that doesn't fit the current meta of the aggression pixels because it is so big. But those three maps we see the most played for a reason.
A lot of times in Europe, especially, we see Infernal Shrines actually being the first map, and it was consistently a lot down the line. Is there any particular reason we're seeing Sky Temple here being chosen by Panda Global to start things off? Do they have a good record on it?
My guess is they've got something crazy.
You think?
They're Panda Global. I mean, they're the X-Team Blaze, right? This is something that they do. And I asked them, I said, with bringing in Som, is there going to be less of that? Will there be less crazy picks? You said, I think we have the potential to make more crazy picks.
Nice. And I think actually one thing too is when you sit in a position where a lot of teams favor Infernal Shrines, I would be planning strategies. Obviously, you scrim on that map a lot. I would be looking to go, what's my next best map? Okay. I'm going to pick that first and expect you're going to take Infernal Shrine. So I get two maps in my favor.
Oh, with the mind games already, Dread. I'm loving it. Dr. Dread in the house. Actually, I've got plenty of nicknames for him during the time. It's going to be great. He already hates them. But anyway, we are going to go indeed on to Sky Temple to start things off. Gilly, talk to us about Sky Temple here as we start things out for our game.
Sky Temple is the largest battleground in the pool. There are 3 lanes and 3 temples. Stand on the temple, control it, and it will shoot laser beams at your opponent's structures. Because of that, any heroes that you can draft that can hold these and deal with the Guardians are going to be great. Also, heroes that can help you take down the structures whenever you might win a team fight, because that means you waste fewer shots from the temples to be able to get to the core.
And indeed, it's a map that we've seen even some evolution on recently. DreamHack coming into the meta, for example, is something that is very, very powerful.
Yeah, Global is great because it is so big.
And I think overall, your region in particular actually focuses on Global a lot.
Yeah.
We see, DreamHack is something that has mixed in, but of course, you guys, you love your Brightwing. You love your Brightwing, so that's definitely something that can come into the table as well, right?
Yeah.
Who doesn't love Brightwing?
Huge Akaface. I mean, we have players who are known for their Brightwing, so yeah, we will see Brightwing at this event for sure.
Yes!
I'm okay with that. Do you know what the word for butterfly is in German? No? Schmetterling. How industrial does that sound? It literally translates to smashing wings or something like that. don't go to Germany. Just it's a scary place. It's a scary place. I don't
This
know why.
conversation took a weird turn.
It just kind of came up. It just kind of came up.
I love it, man.
Yeah.
Learn something new every day with Polaris.
Smashing wings.
Yep.
Smashing wings.
All right. Well, of course, we in just a little bit we'll be getting onto the picks and bans here. What are you kind of expecting aside from? You said there was potentially something crazy coming out, and we already know that the potential global is a very, very big impact mover here on Sky Temple. Anything that Panda Global kind of leans to, prefers? What are we anticipating?
They've played a lot of Abathur before.
Right.
They have Jason here, and I wanted to mention about Jason that there could be some nerves coming into play for him because he didn't play at the spring regionals. He was ill. They had to bring in a replacement for him.
He had a little bit of LAN experience at Heroes Rising, I believe, though. He did show up to that. But
So
yeah, he
that's
wasn't at a bigger stage.
Yeah, definitely less than the other players we have for the
Okay.
team. But Abathur is one that we've seen him play a lot in the past.
You can't talk about Abathur without talking about Fan. And Fan knows how to play Abathur,
That
so
is
he'll know how to
true.
play against Abathur. So I know Jason is one of the best Abathurs in the world. I'll say in the world.
He's good.
But Fan is the best Abathur in the world. So
Damn, that's a claim. Dread, have you been on the receiving end of that? Or?
I have been on the opposite side of that, actually, from time to time. I would argue he is definitely a very skilled Abathur player.
Right.
Probably the best in North America for sure. I don't know about the world. I would actually argue Europe has some really specific players
Oh, well,
who are
thank you.
absurdly good at Abathur, and I think internationally there are some as well. But he is very, very skilled, and it might be something that we look forward to. And we saw Sky 10 was going to be the map you brought up, and NA absolutely loves its globals.
Yep.
This is a map that complements it, so I think that's something that will be higher prioritized when it comes to the two teams.
But those two, we just briefly talked about two heroes, Abathur and Brightwing. Those two very specific compositional picks. You don't see those fit into every draft, but in Gold League, we've seen 10 games played from Brightwing and Abathur both when they're both in the composition they need to be in, 90% win rate for those heroes when they're drafted properly. So that while they're not mainstay metas, both are very powerful in the right comps.
That's cool. And on the other side for Team Naventic, of course, is there anything that particularly lean to? I mean, they are very team-focused orientated. Like, you do see them being highly aggressive in situations where other teams wouldn't be here in America. Have they just figured the game out more than other American teams here at that point to be that kind of aggressive team?
In the qualifiers, they were playing a lot of Sylvanas.
Right.
Go ahead, Zoya.
I think that if you're going to target anything at Naventic, it's ETC. I think Zuna's ETC stands out above the rest for the rest of his warriors. Not saying the rest of his warriors are bad, but his ETC is scary.
It's one of the better warriors to be aggressive with, right?
Yes.
You're setting yourself up with those power slides. You're able to knock people back into the positions that you want them to be in. But you're also mentioning Sylvanas.
Yeah.
Sylvanas takes on a bit more of a higher priority here, I would say, than, well, especially Europe. That comes kind of later down the line. But here, a bit more prioritized to actually get those pushes going.
Yeah, Zoya and I first really started to notice how highly prioritized she was when we were casting Gold League. And then, of course, Naventic has long been known for taking inspiration for their drafts from the Asian regions. And Sylvanas on certain battlegrounds gains a lot of value, and that's something that we saw Big Impact playing a lot, especially in their series versus Cloud9. Now, I don't believe either of those maps were Sky Temple, but if they're trying to get more value out of the boss or just take down structures so that, again, fewer shots from the temples are needed, that might be something that they're considering here.
In Gold League, Sylvanas is the highest first pick rate hero out the entire league at a 22% chance of being first pick.
Yeah,
She
she's
is
climbed
really good right now.
quite high on top of the pyramid of heroes.
Very much so climbed, yeah. It's quite impressive to say the least. Good just the power that she provides. Something that really stands out to me when I watch Naventic is how clever they are in their drafting. I very rarely see them actually mess up in the drafting phase. And we all know that this game comprises of two major sections, drafting and then execution. And in drafting, they're almost always on point.
Yeah, and I think that comes a lot to Zuna specifically has a heavy amount of influence from the Asian scene. He is not afraid to be open about that.
That's
he
cool.
will copy he's very much, they're better than me. I'm going to copy and learn from them, be able to clone them and make his team better. And I think that very much shows in a lot of their drafts. One thing we haven't touched up on quite yet that I feel like Naventic is one of the few teams that prioritize it appropriately is going to be the Illidan. Now that's something on Sky Temple that isn't a must-have. Some teams fear it. I personally adore it just because, again, it's going to be one of the larger maps and it opens up rather quickly because of the shrines. So I am looking out for specifically Naventic's response to giving up specific picks and directly countering it. They're great at that. Also high Illidan value, and then we talked about the Sylph.
And you mentioned that the Zuna likes to look at the Asian scene for a lot of his influence. It's not just Zuna. Fan went on the record saying that his inspiration, the player he looks up to the most, is Zhao Ti from China. And then McIntyre, he said he looks up to Lockdown. So both players there, you know, influenced by the Asian scene. So both, like, you know, the whole team very much looks at Korea and China both.
Well, everyone should.
Yes.
At this point,
yes.
everyone should.
At this point, everyone should.
The strongest regions, no surprise there at this point, considering the structure and how integrated they are, how well they are performing, especially when we looked at spring for sure. Just getting a little bit of an update here whilst we do go on. The draft will be coming momentarily, so do bear with us here for a while as we go into the draft, and it has already begun. We have Illidan banned first, Kale Fast on the other side, and then, of course, Li Ming being picked up for Team Naventic.
This is actually something Dredd brought up earlier, is that NA, until recently, has had a lack of Illidan love. They let it go through a lot of drafts completely, where in other regions, he is first pick, first ban across the board.
Yeah, he is picking up a lot of steam, though, too, and both teams could have people who like to play him. Actually, Panda Global, I've seen 2 different people playing Illidan, but they're really respecting the power of that hero. Panda Global first picking Tyrande. They've been grabbing her a lot more, liking to have the double support style. And with this highlighting of Muradin as the second pick team, again, I have to say it, these guys are known for liking to hide things and bring out crazy things later on, and I think that's what we're seeing from them.
This is a very powerful duo. It's called the Miranda combo for a reason. It's just a nice staple composition, and you can go anywhere you want with it. You don't even have to play aggressive with these 2 heroes. They can fit with anything. So if they are hiding something, you know, they can fit anything around it.
I mean, in essence, isn't this also denying it from a team like Naventic, who could potentially go aggressive themselves? And they are a good combo, as you mentioned. So
yeah, they were playing a lot of Muradin in the qualifiers too, so it makes sense. But that would be a highly contested pick anyway, as Panda were to playing him a lot.
Does this open ETC up for Naventic if they want to go for it, making sure that it's not potentially banned on the other side?
It is an opportunity that they're going to be able to pick up. They haven't shown much in the qualifiers that they have interest in Dahaka, but I do believe that they might be adapting to the type of situation here. I think they're going to go for their melee, and not only because Tassadar is going to be hovered, but I just feel like Naventic is a team that will prioritize their Sonya or their Thrall type heroes higher in the draft than some of the others. So they do pick the task, great pickup. I love their comp so far. They have a lot of poke and a lot of sustain. As long as they have solid engage from this point, I feel like they already have a very powerful draft.
It's actually a really good point that you bring up, because I did see a lot of Thrall bans actually in this region being quite prevalent. So there is the potential that they could go for that, and as you say, with the Tassadar, very, very strong at the moment. But taking the time with this one, they are.
Yeah, I would normally say 100% Sonya here for Naventic, but Thrall is really good on this map. It's really nice to have a good solo laner for both top and bottom lane.
Traditionally, Naventic hasn't shown to prioritize Thrall unless it's a small map or into a kill Thoth, so I actually think Sonya, but they do hover in ETC here, so talking about Zuna's ETC, no surprise there, going to be picking it up. Touching on Panda Global's composition, the Muradin pickup, I will be interested to see. It kind of opts them out of moving into Dahaka unless they want to run it in a double tank, which would be an absurd amount of CC, but I feel like the prioritization was very high. It gave Naventic a lot of what they're known for.
If they play Dahaka, it is Cladius who plays it. So if Cladius wants to play something else, he is the primary drafter. Everyone, of course, implements or influences it, but he is the primary one, and that would mean they put B-Kid onto something else. So this is the case. Muradin gotta be B-Kid for sure. But now we're going into the next bans.
What are you looking for here in terms of what Naventic already has? Well, Sonya goes.
No surprise there. I mean, I think McIntyre and Zuna playing Sonya in the past was just kind of what was expected every game for Naventic, so seeing that ban is pretty common. Naventic, I feel like they have one of the more diverse support players in North America, so if they were wanting to try and draft around that, Kemba can play probably anything at this tournament.
I mean, I'm kind of anticipating like Rhaegar eventually being on Panda Global and Team Naventic taking Karazin later on. Is that a trend that can kind of set in with the current position of this draft, and also banning Sylvanas out here as well?
With Tassadar picked up for Naventic, they're not afraid to go Karazim. I don't think they'll prioritize it, but it is something that it's not like it's not going to hurt them anyway. Yeah, it will be later in, and it's a situation to where if they leave Rhaegar Uther open, I wouldn't be surprised if they get those, especially Uther pairing very heavily with ETC.
They were playing some Task Brightwing too in the qualifiers, so that might be a potential. Again, Brightwing being able to phase shift in, soak as long as she can to try to help them get ahead. But Thrall and looking at Uther now as 2 more picks for Panda Global.
We aren't seeing anything crazy with this draft so far. They're all just powerful individual heroes. We're not seeing any stylistic changes or any wonky picks that are trying to throw off the opponent. This is looking pretty standard to me.
What do you think Team Naventic is going to head on towards now in terms of what they have already?
Falstead?
Yeah.
It's going to be, I think it's going to be a Falstead Rhaegar. They do not have to pick the Rhaegar at all. They could go Karzim or Brightwing. Globals on this map are very, very valuable. Typically, they prioritize her on Cursed Hollow more than Sky, but it's an option. But overall, I think Falstead will be the DPS we see them move towards, unless they decide they want a melee still.
Maybe.
It is an
I was
option.
also wondering maybe Zag?
Yeah, that is good. That is a good point. I guess it could be. It would be your strong solo laner as a response to Thrall. So
That's a very good point, because you do need something to really deal with that, especially down towards bottom lane if that's occur.
They didn't play any Zool in the qualifiers. Doesn't mean that they can't play it. Just not showing any priority there for them. But
they are willing to ban it, though. I've seen Naventic ban Zool, but you're right. They very rarely will be willing to run it.
Right, there is
Zag.
Zara.
Okay.
Good call.
One final pick for Panda Global. Probably Som or Jason. I think Som has been playing the second support, if I'm remembering right. But they have some flexibility there. Again, because they have 4 flex members and the support player.
I think Falstad fits this perfectly. You got the global on the map, you got the disengage. If you get hit with a maw, you get hit with a mosh pit.
That's interesting.
That is very interesting.
That's
the new age Grey main.
Yeah, so he doesn't gain too much value on this map specifically, especially post nerfs.
Yeah.
He can solo the shrines, but that's not like he's the only one who can at this point. I think their mentality is you're going to get an instant reset when you complement it with the Murd and Tyrande hyper engage that they have here. Also with Uther, it empowers him to be kind of a Worgen oriented, very highly aggressive. But
yeah, it'll definitely Worgen build.
I'm afraid when you're facing against a Rhaegar Tassadar, I don't think you can rely on that reset here. And without him gaining value on the map specifically, this pick is very bold for Panda Global.
I don't see much Grey main anymore in this situation. I definitely think we'd all be expecting either Falstad or Vala in its place. But Grey main, that's definitely interesting. We'll see if they want to commit to it.
I mean, beyond the lightning change.
That makes so much sense. Gust is so important.
They will do that to us, by the way. They like to play with you when you're casting them. Yeah, they will troll.
I don't believe. I'm going. Oh my goodness.
Okay, here we go.
I mean, beyond the lightning chain lightning that Thrall has here, there's actually not that much ranged potential beyond like a lockdown from Muradin and Tyrande, and then Hunter's Mark with the amount of damage that Grey main can put out is very strong. But isn't this kind of a very all-in-esque style here from Panda Global?
I mean, yeah, it is. It 100% is, which is why you saw like the high prioritization on Tassadar as a direct response to it. It's going to put it in a situation where I feel like how straightforward the damage is coming out on the side of Panda Global and the decent response picked up on the side of Naventic. I am fearful for the success coming into this draft, not just because the names behind the draft, but it just feels very Stunlock meta oriented, not kind of adapting to what we've seen in the recent patches. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you 100%. Naventic won this draft pretty one-sidedly, in my opinion. It is. Panda Global, they've always made these different styles. They've always had their own play style, so you can't count them out. But when it comes to just what we're seeing across all regions, Naventic really drafted well.
If you'd have seen something other than the Grey main towards the end, do you think that would you be of the same opinion?
A little bit less one-sided, but I agree with what Dredd said. It's very all-in-y, and they drafted immediately in response with the Tassadar pickup.
Right.
So from that pick right there, Naventic was ahead.
I would actually argue that the Falstad not only gains a little bit more value just because I feel like it's a better pick overall, but also because when you run a global, it's really dominant if you have a 4-man that's absurdly powerful. They have exactly that. They have Thrall, Uther, Thrall, Uther, Murd, and Tyrande. You can kill anybody with those as long as you get it all in a single target. Meanwhile, he's just away, getting a little bit of soak. That 1-4 split, I feel like would have been accented a little bit better. Also, if they don't get the combo that they want starting out the fight, not having Falstad to kind of gust and get a reset is something that I think is going to be hurting them. Once they engage, there is no backing out. That is it.
Right.
If it didn't work out, it's going to hurt.
Sorry, go on.
If they execute it perfectly, though, with the Grey main post-10, they will be able to kill their target before Rhaegar can land in Seshal every time. That's the power between Uther and Rhaegar versus this kind of composition. So if they can play it right, yes. But it's hard.
Is there an onus on Thrall here to actually get good flanks? I feel as if it's a pivotal move here for them to be able to shut Naventic down.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would say that it's a flank. It's the timing of the Sunder and hitting, making sure he hits the healer.
Okay.
He has to delay the ability for Tassadar getting his shields out because he has the highest single target within 5 seconds, and then also making sure he stops the Ancestral from going up.
Focus fire is most important here. Just making sure you get that first kill every time.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much. As we are about to get into our first game in our first series here of the North American Regional, don't forget to hashtag the NA No, wait a minute. No, it's not. It's DHATX16 to join in with the conversation on Twitter as well. Tweet all of us as well as at DreamHack to join in with that. Who do you think is going to win is all important. A lot of onus, it will be on Naventic for sure, but will Team Panda Global be able to cause the upset? We are going to go to that game number 1 in just a moment, and our casters will be Gilly and Dread. But before we actually do start doing with that, of course, like, overall, who do you predict is probably going to walk away with this?
Naventic.
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 All right, well, let's get into it.
Well, lots of predictions from us for Naventic, but Panda Global, of course, we talked about being the dark horse.
Yep.
They could do it here as long as they can get those picks, rely on the Murd and Tyrande, especially if they could maybe even start it off very early, catch some people out of position, and then get a healthy lead so they can control those shrines.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest advantages, if you're going to give it to Panda Global's composition, is that the shrine's going to be spawning roughly between the levels of 3 to 5, which is where Tyrande has kill potential at all points in the early game, which especially can kind of make the second shrine phase very lopsided if you are successful in that segment. So I think that's going to be very crucial, and also the aggressive rotations coming out from Naventic in their playstyle for those first 2 shrines.
Well, here we are in game number 1 between Panda Global and Team Naventic, with Panda Global in the blue, B-Kid playing Murden, Yuge on Uther, Psalm playing Greymane, that'll be Jason on Tyrande, and rounding it off, Cladius will be playing Thrall. And playing for Team Naventic, there's Fan on Li-Ming, Big Impact playing Zagara, Kenma on Rhaegar, Hazen will be played by McIntyre, and finally Zuna on ETC.
Zuna filling out the tank role quite well recently here, but not surprising. The teams aren't making anything too crazy happen. We have the Thrall, Zagara, infamous bot lane matchup going in, a little bit of a skirmish in the mid lane. But like I said, I think a lot of this is going to come down to Panda Global's aggression during the first shrines, and Naventic, known for their aggression, how well they rotate around that site and abuse that.
Yeah, they always do have the Oracle to help them out too with McIntyre, so that'll be very key to know that. Maybe we could even see Naventic just give up the mid if that's where the fight's going to be and try to go up to the top one, knowing that Tyrande might be an issue for them.
One major thing to be looking out for, especially in the mid to late game here between these two teams, is that Panda Global has very little wave clear. Now, this isn't one of the maps that's necessarily the most detrimental to have, but wave clear is relevant on every single map, especially if you're in behind, right? Because the mini waves are going to be pushing in, the temples have been able to take them down, and now you have no vision. But the combo has been coming out here. B-Kid actually taking a lot of damage and is going to dwarf toss out.
Almost in the Worgen form, but gets away, but they don't find the first pick that they need, and now the first temple phase has started. Looks like both teams are leaving one person, the Thrall versus Zagar in the bottom. Neither wants the other team to get too ahead from that, being able to soak experience in that lane.
Yeah, and there was only going to be 2 shots picked up for Naventic here, so rotationally these teams will be able to evenly trade because there was no time difference between the capture. Sightstone is huge to the contention of these 2 shrines, so whoever has that is typically going to have a rotational advantage. A little bit of a skirmish there, but B-Kid does have his dwarf toss.
Still, Greymane is holding the top temple while the bottom one is firing away at Panda Global's structures. Now, if they can get this later on, they may be able to try to grab the bruisers before that bottom temple phase and then push in with them and take out the top fort. And maybe if they could do that, they could try to get that early experience lead that we were talking about they would need.
Already, one thing to note, I feel like Fan has done a very good job of landing a large amount of poke on a B-Kid specifically. It hasn't been anything detrimental, right? But it's kind of telling of where this game might go. He is actually like half health to 25% to B-Kid and multiple times already, and that's pretty impressive this early in the game.
Yeah, that's a Murden. That's supposed to be the tank in front. We'll see how that plays out later on. But for now, the temple phase has concluded, and really just trading it out. No kills, no big skirmishes, other than around the watchtower in the mid. Taking a look at the talent, because we have a double support with the Tyrande, we have the option for 2 protective shields to try to keep them alive through the damage of Naventic.
Yeah, and then we also see going a little bit more into the Worgen form picked up at level 4 on the side of Greymane. I like that pickup. It's kind of adapting, into the situation of kind of his nerfs a little bit there. Both teams getting the Giants and saying, hey, we want to defend it. The Shrine is going to be spawning for roughly going to be another minute at this point, so they aren't going to be worried about the night camp. But so far, it's honestly been just both teams dancing around each other, willing to trade. But it's subtle, but Naventic is in an advantage here, right? Because they have a far stronger late game composition and they're taking out the front wall on the bottom half of the map. You gave the early game composition to Panda Global, and they have nothing to show here pre-10 so far.
Now if Panda Global can't get some of that bottom tempo away from Naventic, they're going to have a problem with losing the fort because of how much damage they got done here. Both towers and the gate down just from these giants protecting them and the power of Zagara that they have.
One subtle thing to keep in mind here is because they did take out that front wall, the XP spike on the second shrine is going to hit later on the side of Naventic. Not always is that going to be a crucial thing, but if the team understands that and abuses that a little bit, if the race to 10 gets closer, Panda Global might be able to hit a power spike really quick because they'll get that XP a little bit faster. But the shrine is going to spawn. Naventic is posturing around the night camp while Panda Global opts to actually make the early rotation here. They will be slow to capture this camp, but again, it's all going to come down to the Miranda combo on the bottom half of the map.
And Panda Global not even going after their own bruisers, and that will be the issue. It's just Uther up there in top to try to deal with that. So I guess they're just going to have to forego and maybe even let those bruisers get some damage. But they did get the jump on this tempo while the rest of Naventic are just starting to move down here.
And those Knights won't get effective for some time. Azuna comes in for a stun. Look at the Li Ming follow-up on the side of Pan. Claudius is going to be able to barely get away with his life, but one Tash shield on Azuna and no damage was taken at all. A huge advantage sitting on the side of Naventic for the second shrine.
Along with thick skin, Greymane picked up Hunter's Blunderbuss, and now he has some range on his human auto attacks. But until they can really get go for the throat and know that they have that potential, they're just trying to stay back from this. But again, they're hanging out here. They're not going for the temple, and nobody. Just now they're sending Greymane up to clear out those bruisers and get the watchtower. So Panda Global are just going to give this one up to Naventic.
Another situation where we see the early game composition not winning in the early game. I know that they haven't gotten a large XP advantage, but I think it's very crucial to kind of translate here that is the worst case scenario when you sit on the Mert in Toronto composition on their side. Also, this isn't a frequently kind of played strategy when it comes to talents, but Mule was an option for both of the teams.
Right.
This is a great map for it specifically, and neither side opting into it, and so making it to where the game is going to be on a very, very heavy timer for both sides. I feel like if you're not winning the early game with the comp that you have for Panda Global, that might have been something to consider. Hurts your team fight, but it is an option to be looking at to try and mix up how Naventic is getting everything they want.
Right, maybe the concern there with getting Lunar Blaze is not being able to follow up in time if B-Kid does get a good Storm Bolt, or even maybe forcing Jason to go out of position, try to get that Lunar Flare if you don't have that extra range on it. But now Panda Global are picking up their bruisers. They're going for something safe because their opponents have level 10. Looking at the heroic abilities, everything standard across the board. Force Wall, Disintegrate, Mosh Pit, Ancestral Healing, and Devouring Maw for Zagara.
Yeah, we're not going to be caught off guard by any of the talents on the side of Naventic so far. Go for the throw there is going to be picked up on the side of Greymane. Again, nothing surprising between the two. So these teams opting to play it very, very standard, but again, that's falling in Naventic's favor so far in this draft.
So there is a Starfall. Anytime you get into a big fight over a certain area, they could make that work for them for sure. Slowing people down, allowing Thrall to get in and start putting his damage down. Greymane too, to be able to get in, but that is it. Both teams getting heroic abilities, picking up mercenary camps, and getting themselves ready for the next temple phase.
This is just a rough situation if you are in the side of Panda Global, and they're already one structure down. It's not the end of the world, but they are structurally, you need to keep track of it on Sky Temple. Like I said, it's on a timer, and whoever gets the structural advantage, look at already another front to wall being contested without the shrines, right? More value going to be going to Naventic over and over again. They are not taking a huge lead, but it's a bunch of subtle leads in a row, and that is something that I feel like is going to be very rough for Panda Global. But they do have a giant split pushing on the bottom half, while skirmish is going to happen up here.
All right, well, here we go as the next temples start. Naventic holding on to the top temple and nobody in the bottom. So we're going to see the full-on brawl here as the Disintegrate comes out and starts burning down the health bars of Panda Global. But yeah, the skirmishes, man, still no kills at level 11 for both teams.
The longer this fight goes, technically the better it is for Panda Global because those giants pushing on bottom, there will be nobody down there to be able to clear them. It is a minor advantage, but for the most part here, it's going to be who gets the upper engage. One thing to keep in mind is fan and big impact positioning is crucial because they are very susceptible to the Mert in Toronto composition. Also, McIntyre shields are crucial. Zuna going in, missing the power side, but see how this plays out.
Panda Global will have to be very, very careful because if there's a huge Devouring Maw into a mosh pit, that will obliterate their team. So you see how well they're spreading out. They're being very careful. They're knowing when Power Slide is available for ETC, so they could try to avoid it and not let that happen.
I would like to note that because this skirmish has gone so long, that's half a fort lost on the bottom side of Naventic. Again, they need to delay as long as possible, and they'll be in a winning situation here, catching up structurally here, but a little bit of a skirmish. Fan getting a lot of value out of that disintegrate so far, and Zuna getting stunned out.
Oh, there goes the stun. Zuna in trouble. Ancestral Healing will keep him alive. Sundering pushes him in, and Devouring Maw only catches one person. The Starfall is slowing people down and making it difficult for Naventic to try to get back into this fight and group up, and that is Zuna. First blood for Panda Global.
That was huge, and Mosh Pit had a little to zero impact in that team fight. Not only was it put on one target, but then also it directly interrupted. Look at on the bottom half of the map, 25% only sitting on that fort. This is a huge win. They aren't going to hit an XP spike at any point, but it is going to be a pretty big win on the side of Panda Global. Very well done. I feel like that skirmish, the dancing around on the side of Naventic.
Their positioning
was
so great. One person in a Maw. Well, you said one person in a mosh pit too.
Yeah.
The fact that they were able to avoid all of that control and those really big, scary heroics that are on a long cooldown now, that's great for them.
Yeah, no, all those heroics are far longer than, not far longer, but typically a little bit longer than some of the majority on the side of Panda Global. So both teams are going to be rounding out 13. Now look at structurally, Naventic's actually going to be a little bit on the back, but the engage is going to come on to Tastar. He will be able to survive. Zuna trying to get a little bit of a poke here, but Greymane is still on the shrine here, so this fight is 4 versus 5 for them.
Yeah, they're okay just poking where they can. They know that those big heroics are still down, so it's not too much of a concern for them, but Greymane has gotten off of the shrine now. A good force wall stops Speedkid from getting back to his team, but he is the Muradin. He can tank through just a little bit of damage.
With the lack of burst for Naventic and how aggressive we've seen Zuna being with those power slides here, it is going to be rough for them. I feel like they need to get a little bit more poke out of Fan and a little bit more damage coming out from Zagar. She can put kill potential on a lot, but the root coming out to Zuna. Taranda's Lunar Flare will miss, and the rest of the shrine captured for Naventic.
Disintegrate almost just being a zone there to dissuade them from continuing to go into a fight, but Zuna wants to continue this in as he power slides in, and they force B-Kid to dwarf toss over the force wall.
So nothing major, no major lead in one direction or the other, but overall, the leader of this game so far is actually Panda Global. They kind of didn't gain anything 1 through 10 like I felt like they needed with their composition, but they do have, or excuse me, it's Naventic because they have the middle forts up at this point, but they get a little bit aggressive here, and they're going to back out, paint the map red, worry about the next shrine here. Level 16, race is dead even.
Yeah, I feel like they walk on eggshells every time they're about to get into a big fight, knowing that there's Devouring Maw, there's Mosh Pit. So you have to have a lot of confidence going in and saying, especially now that they've already done it once, right? They've said, okay, we can avoid all of that. We can make it so they waste that and then get into our engage. Wait and use the Sundering after that to take someone out. But still, only 1 kill. These teams are very, very close in this first game.
And a lot of that comes down to, I think, tournament pressure. A lot of teams like to take the patient game, right? You would rather not risk letting the 1 or 2 kills happen in some area and feel like you lost the game because you made too bold of a move. So first game for both of these teams coming out in the tournament, I don't think it's surprising. Zuna and the rest of Naventic actually posturing, trying to see if a poor rotation comes out for Panda Global, but they see that they're at the night camp and that nothing's going to happen.
And Naventic has a lot of vision control between Zagara and Tassadar, especially getting mental acuity to lower the cooldown of Oracle too. But at the very least, they have Sentinels from Jason to be able to shoot out and at least check on the big deals, the boss, or whether somebody is going to be hiding in a normal place where you might see that happen.
Giants are going to be captured as the shrine spawns in the upper half of the map. Let's see if Panda Global commits any resources. Yes, they are going to commit resources to be able to get that kill. So Naventic has the upper hand when it comes to the camps pushing, but they are losing the race slightly here and will continue to lose it, I believe, as this goes on to the top shrine. So 16 will be picked up. I want to know if Naventic is going to be able to force that fight before that spike's hit. It's going to be very close here.
Panda Global taking their time to get up there as they really want to make sure they have the 16 that you mentioned. It's all about having that huge advantage over your opponents and making them decide whether to give up an objective or fight into you being down that.
So the fact that Panda Global is not already working on the top lane and getting the shrine is actually a pretty big misplay. It puts it in a position where Naventic now only gains time to get 16 to actually possibly contest. Keep in mind all the waves are pushing in the opposite direction, so there's very few free XP, which is why you see Panda Global rotating around trying to find them, trying to get a pick. They are not posturing onto the shrine. Now Thrall decides it is time to cap, that he's gotten 16. I feel like they could have done that a little bit earlier, seeing Naventic's positioning being so far away.
Was it something where they felt like if they didn't get that middle wave on the way up, they wouldn't have had the 16, and it might have been a position where they could have gotten into a fight.
It's one of those situations where it is essentially playing very, very safe, but almost, in my opinion, a little too safe. Yeah. But the boss being postured up, trying to force a risky decision-making coming out for Panda Global, but it turns out they are going to back off here, and they're going to contest the shrines. Naventic still not 16.
Executioner for Greymane. They have a lot of stuns. That could be the damage they need to completely obliterate a target. See if they're able to make that happen, but Panda Global now as the Naventic rotating up and Thrall. Cladius is in trouble. Will they bait out at least a defensive sundering, if nothing else?
Li Ming actually landing the combo, almost being able to take him out here, Gilly.
And there goes the sundering, and they found Li Ming. But a couple members get pulled into the Devouring Maw. This might be the chance for Naventic to even it up, but no, Psalm is on the chase. ETC goes down. 2 for nothing for Panda Global.
Yeah, and that was just, even with the positioning on Thrall kind of getting caught out a little bit too much, it didn't matter. A beautiful Murden stun to be able to finish off the kill onto Li Ming, realizing she's a little bit caught out there. Great Sunder as the setup there. It was just the 1-2 punch, and Fan is going to be dead.
That was so impressive too. A lot of times, you mentioned tournament setting into the first game.
Yeah.
We could have seen Cladius use Sundering if he thought that he could get out, but instead, the patience to know my team is here, they will have my back, and now they're going after the boss. And without Li Ming, without ETC, what can Naventic really do against this?
They're just going to have to sit there and wait, try and get a little bit of poke. Kenma actually getting body blocked. He will be dying in this chokehold here. That is actually a very big deal, because now with the boss being captured, there was almost no contention for Naventic. They decide to posture around. Now they have a boss pushing and a Rhaegar dead for 40 seconds. This is worst case scenario. This is where Panda Global is going to set themselves apart in this game.
All right, they're going to start pushing in with this boss, try to get the towers down at least. If they can bring those down, then they know the boss starts to put permanent damage on the keep instead.
Yeah.
And that is less lasers that they need from the objective, if nothing else. But it also opens up a win condition for Panda Global if they can bring down this keep.
Absolutely. So this siege up here with this boss is not going to get the keep, right? But it leaves a situation to where the next shrine, if it spawns bottom, is 100% now going to be getting this keep, which is a very, very big deal. The Tassadar shields aren't going to matter. Panda Global showing that they don't have interest. The boss is a little bit too low health. They aren't going to try and force that engage here. But now they have the opportunity to secure the first keep, which is a very big deal on a huge map like Sky Temple.
And you're so right to point out that that Rhaegar kill was the difference in how much damage that they got done there. Because now the keep is open and available if they can win another team fight or get the bottom shrine. And hey, look, in 25 seconds, bottom and top.
Yeah, so B-Kid actually getting a great stun and Dwarf Toss out here. So what I want to touch up on is if I am Panda Global, bottom is the most appealing, and everybody knows it, right? I am going to be getting a keep. But you are winning by 2 levels. It is not worth the risk. Do not take the fight. Trade as best as you possibly can. Take the opposite shrine. If Naventic goes top, you go bottom. If they go bottom, you just keep dancing around them. Wait till you get 20, then you force that fight. That keep is not going to be worth it at this time, but Naventic has other plans. They decide they're going to try and force through a siege here and ensure the bottom keep.
All right, so what do Panda Global do to reciprocate? We're seeing them come in, but Thrall is not here at this fight. No sundering available for them. So they're just trying to push them away. But they've caught them on the death bridge. A Lunar Flare is brilliant, and Kenma once again gets caught. Devouring Maw also used on one member. Yuge was pulled in there. B-Kid far in, but the rest of the members starting to come into this. Divine Shield used to bring down Zagara, and Psalm is on the chase.
This is without Thrall. He is capturing the top shrine and a Night Cam going this entire time. One misplay on the side of Rhaegar. Kenma getting caught out of position. The stun's coming in. 1-2 punch. Everybody is falling down. This is 3 people. 20 advantage is going to be picked up for Panda Global. This is going to be a double keep play as well. This is, without a doubt, all they have to do is play the safe game, and this is game number 1, most likely convincingly for PG. They need to play the safe game. They do not need to take any risks. That is the struggle of Sky Temple. It's legitimately a situation where you never have to risk anything.
Ladies is like, hello, members who are left here. The rest of Panda Global.
This is risky.
Okay, Rhaegar is back up, but still 23 seconds until every member from Naventic are back. But they're all 5 are on the core. Jason gets hit by the Disintegrate, but is still alive. They have the double support to try to stay alive through this. They've brought it down, and this is going to be it. Panda Global are taking out the core, or are they? Some members are back up now. Psalm gets taken out. Only 2 people left. Cladius and B-Kid are here. Are they going to do this? They're going to do this. And Panda Global take game number 1 over Naventic.
The dark horse comes through, boys. That was very well done.
Look at them, they're so happy.
I mean, I don't blame them. If I just convincingly bodied Naventic in game number 1, I'd be about as happy too. You just took out the favorite of the entire tournament, not just the group, in a pretty convincing manner. I mean, it's just well done. Side of Panda Global, every single thing about it was just really well done.
really awesome game for sure. Naventic, a couple of really big missteps that led into Panda Global getting a lot more than they might have otherwise. But guys, what did you think?
Very, very cool to watch that game one already. A little bit of an upset. Not exactly the best start for Naventic, I would say. But there were so many cool little moves that we observed throughout that. Zoya, you were sat in the back. What did you catch on to?
So the thing that caught my eye was Jason's Toronto. It's not the standard Toronto we see that's damage focused. It was the support Toronto. And you could see the extra sustain in those team fights going a lot longer than anyone was expecting because the Toronto Uther combo was just outlasting Naventic. That pick was, like, the way they played it, won them that game.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, I think one major thing sitting on the side of Naventic is they were very poor with damage control. They got in the back foot and they made it worst case scenarios 2 different times in a row. That game went from almost dead even to just, holy cow, how does Panda Global lose? And I feel like that was the damage control on the side of Naventic.
There's a lot of questions that I have about that game, but I think we'll actually have a replay to actually take a look at here. Zoya, you've kind of sifted through and we'll take a look at that.
We've had 2 replays, but this first one just showing you the sustain. This was a very, very long fight where we do see that first blood onto Zuna, but it just shows you the consistency of this roster and the kill potential, not just with the initial combo, but with every combo following that, which was really cool to see.
Yeah, I believe that was the first kill, which
it
wasn't even until they were level 11, so it was very slow paced at the beginning.
So also one question that I had is Li Ming's talent choices. Very, very heavy focus on towards damage, not necessarily on towards defensive capability. Glass Cannon level 13 instead of something like Illusionist. Something you see in the Korean scene a bit, now kind of navigating over to here. Is this a little bit of a liability for them if he is able to caught? I think caught out twice in some of the earlier stages.
I feel like, get caught out.
I mean, if you get caught out, yeah, but if it's a situation to where you can't kill anything in the first place and you spec full into damage, it's like, I feel like it was the right choice, it just didn't work out. So
okay, and also another moment to actually check out here from that first game as well. As again, Mr. Zuna, sorry, oh my god, that was
the tilt starts early today.
It both starts with Z. I don't know. Go on.
Again, just showing you the burst capability out of just one combo, and then the sustain following up. No one on the end of Panda Global is low due to that double support between Jason and Yuge. They are doing a fantastic job of keeping everyone alive while synergizing with their team to secure kills. I mean, a former support player, it's not hard keeping everyone up alive while helping secure kills.
Yeah, it isn't, but actually, one thing going into the game is just the support play. I think it's going to be really crucial. I feel like, without a doubt, I would argue that Kemba was detrimental. He was the 2 major kills that completely snowballed the game. And I feel like the Yuge had a great Divine Shield specifically to get the Grey Mane out of the mosh pit. So I think the support plays are personally what actually separated that part. I know I'm a little biased, but I feel like that's what separated the 2 teams.
What about, oh my god, those Starfalls? From Jason.
Really great zoning.
So
amazing
good.
Zoning.
I want to ask if this was intentional or not. So a play that I saw that was very, very cool from Panda Global and actually next level thinking was when Naventic was taking the boss at the 16-15 moment, and there was 4 down there, Thrall was taking the top shrine. They knew that the rest of the 4 were down there, actually being able to observe, and then Thrall moved off the shrine
to bait it,
telegraphing the idea that they had
we're all
to give
rotating.
it up.
Yeah.
I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was such a cool little play.
It's very heads-up play, and it's really shows why they're one of the dark horses and favorite teams kind of coming into this tournament, especially after that game. So that is very heads-up because capturing camps and objectives are very telling of positioning, so he feigned it, and it's just I mean, next level play, really, as you put it. So
very cool stuff. All right, well, before we get into game number 2, of course, we have a bit of an offer for you. You can get 15% off all Heroes of the Storm. I almost said Heart of the Swarm. Heroes of the Storm merchandise over at gear.blizzard.com. And all you have to do is use the code HGC2016NA1. That's the right one. I'll remember it completely over the rest of the course of the 2 days going on. But make sure to go over there. 15% off. I own a whole lot of that stuff, and I thoroughly recommend it to you. It is fantastic. I believe we'll be going on to game number 2 in just a little bit, but I also believe that we have a quick break before we go on to that as well. So join us after that when we'll go on to game number 2 between Panda Global and Team Naventic.